Good day to my Algebra 1 students. This is Mrs. Winters, and today we're going to discuss real number properties, which will actually probably be a review, but we need just a little brush up on this. The first property is the commutative property of addition. And when you commute to work, you move your car from home to work. And so you change the place, the location. And so when we use the commutative property of addition, we change the location of the numbers. So logically, in example 1, 2 plus 3 is exactly the same as 3 plus 2. And example 2, even if we use some negative integers in that addition, a negative 3 plus 5 is exactly the same thing as 5 plus a negative 3. So when you use the commutative property of addition, then you are just changing the order in which you're adding. Okay, pause this just a second then, and I want you to go to your homework response sheet and answer that first question, and then come right back. There is a similar property for multiplication, and it is called the commutative property of multiplication. And again, commute means to change the order. So if you look over example 1, it's no surprise that 2 times 5 is exactly the same result as 5 times 2. And the same thing on number 2, example 2. It's no surprise that a negative 5 times 3 is exactly the same thing as 3 times negative 5. Again, if you look at the results of the left and right side for each equation, they're identical. The example 1 result is 10 equals 10. And the example 2 result is negative 15 equals negative 15. So what I'd like you to do again is just pause just a minute and go to question 2 and write 2 equation examples of the commutative property of multiplication. Now, before you come back, go ahead and do question 3 also. You may have to think about that just a little bit. Question 3 and 4 actually. Do question 3 and 4 and then come right back. Now we're going to switch gears to the associative property. And associative is like your associates, or which numbers are grouped together. Your associates are your friends, and you group together in the hallway. Well, a number's associates are who they're grouped with, so you have grouping symbols surrounding them. Now notice the order doesn't change in this example. So when you have the group 3 plus 2 and then plus 5 more on the left side, to demonstrate the associative property, we would just shift the parentheses down, but the order would stay the same. So on the right hand side, we'd have 3 plus the group 2 plus 5. Now, if you notice again, the left hand side would simplify to 5 plus 5. And the right-hand side would simplify to 3 plus 7, but the result is 10 in both cases. So what I'd like you to do is, again, go to question 5 and write an example of that property. And pause just a second and then come back, please. The last property is the associative property of multiplication. And again, when you change the grouping or the associates, the order stays the same, but you've shifted or changed the grouping symbols. And so again, if you look at this with multiplication, the left-hand side would ultimately be a negative 15 times 2, which is a negative 30. But the right-hand side would be 5 times a negative 6, which is a negative 30. So yes, because the sides come out to be arithmetically equivalent, then we know that the associative property does work. But with the associative property, the order does not change. Just the associations change, just the grouping changes. Okay, so I'd like you to go ahead and pause again just a minute and answer question 6. The final topic we're going to cover today is the distributive property. Now, the distributive property is actually distributing a multiplication factor over a package of addition or subtraction. And of course, distribute means to share equally. So on the left-hand side, if you're going to share 4 equally with that 3 plus 5 sum, then you have to share 4 with the 3. So 4 times 3, and then plus you have to share 4 with the 5. So 4 times 5. Again, the arithmetic, though, works out exactly the same. On the left-hand side, that would be 4 times 8, which is 32. On the right-hand side, that would be 12 plus 20, which is again 32. Now, the beauty of the distributive property is that sometimes it's actually necessary because you have an unknown inside the parentheses. And when that happens, then you can't actually carry out the addition or possibly subtraction inside the parentheses. And so the only way to eliminate the grouping symbols is to apply the distributive property. Now, and so I've given you an example of that. The second example there, 4 times the parentheses package x plus 2 equals 4 times the x plus 4 times the 2. And that's a more typical use of the distributive property because it's actually necessary there so that you can eliminate the grouping symbols. Okay, so that sort of wraps that little introduction or reminder up about these properties, the commutative property, associative property, and distributive property. And that's sort of our first installment on properties. So finish up your homework response sheet, and then we will continue with this discussion and homework tomorrow during class. So have a great evening, get your rest, see you tomorrow.